In this episode, we are going to talk about how to build relationships on LinkedIn, how to grow your network and grow your authority. And we're going to do this with the assistance of Dan Sanchez, who is the Director of Audience Growth at Sweetfish Media, and he's an expert on growing audiences on LinkedIn.
Brilliant.
You can already start to see this career come up more and more. People are hiring audience growth specialists, audience growth directors, VPs of audience growth, because we're starting to find that it's not enough to be able to make content. You need to be able to get people to see that content and then actually want to see more. You need them to subscribe. You need to build an audience that anticipates the content and builds a habit of reading and watching and listening to your content. So that's what the director of audience growth does. It's a little bit different than the people that just make the content. It's thinking about how to get it in front of the right people. It's thinking about how to get them to subscribe and track churn, not for your product, but for your audience. It's almost treating like the content like the product.
LinkedIn has right now about 690 million members. About 196 million are in the US alone. About 310 million active users every single month. Now, these are really big numbers. It basically means that any business person that you want to do business with is there. It's basically a never-ending 24/7 conference that has anybody you want to meet in there. You just have to figure out how to meet them. And that means two things, right? One thing it means is that you need to be able to create content in order to connect with those people. That's like coming into that conference and saying hello and having a good opening sentence to actually connect with people. The other thing is you need people to actually want to talk to you after that. And that's kind of like where you come in on how do you actually connect with the right people. I'll say one statistics that I found in preparation for this, which blew my mind. Out of the 690 million people on LinkedIn, only 3 million people generate content regularly. So that's 0.5%, right? Less than 0.5% of people on LinkedIn actually generate content. So it's a huge, crazy opportunity. And the other half of that says that these 3 million people are getting 9 billion with a B impressions every single week. So the opportunity to actually connect with people through content creation on LinkedIn is there. How do you connect with the people? How do you make the comeback? How do you find the right people? How do you create the right content? But now I want to hear you, if you have anything to add to this long setup. Why LinkedIn?
Why LinkedIn? Well, for starters, in B2B settings, like if you're not on LinkedIn, like it's hard to make a case against for any other thing unless you just know your audience is there. If you're selling B2B and you need to target certain types of people within certain kinds of company, there's no better way to do it in LinkedIn because that's where people keep that information. That's where they put their job titles. You can go to Facebook. Sometimes people add their job titles there. Sometimes they don't. It's certainly not following them on their little byline on Facebook, right? For you to even find, you have to dig for it if it's there at all. And only a small percentage actually put it there.
Correct.
I'm trying to think of like what else even comes close. Like, what you gonna go to YouTube? Probably not. Reddit? Maybe if you only really want to find out how people really feel about you, So that's a kind of a scary place to be, but not bad for market research if you want to see what people are really feeling, because it's anonymous accounts there. So hard to identify who's where and what position
Correct.
within what company. It's anonymous most of the time. Twitter, well, it's hard to identify what company they work for, as they might not put it in their profile, and it's hard to pull that out. They might not even be talking about it. They might be known as like somebody who's loves their backyard farm, but really they're a sales rep in a major Fortune 500 company, but they talk about farming on Twitter. Yeah. On LinkedIn, it's mostly about business and most usually about what they're doing in their career, if they're posting there at all. So it just makes it really easy to identify and find your audience there. And I think LinkedIn actually has some facets to it that, for me, put it above Twitter. I still think Twitter is a pretty good place where you can connect and find people, but LinkedIn has some major advantages in discoverability alone. For starters, it's easier to connect with people. And if they receive your connection requests, they're automatically following you back. That's huge. On Twitter, you can follow people, but that doesn't mean they're following you back.
Correct.
Right? So each connection is a follower on LinkedIn. That helps. anytime somebody comments on your post, they might as well be tapping the share button because it actually gets shared more, which is really how things go viral on LinkedIn. It's not through the share button like it is on Twitter, retweet, or on Facebook. It's through commenting. And that's a viral component that I don't think most people, especially people that are consuming passively, even understand why they're getting the content they're getting. It's because one of their connections commented on it, most likely. Not because it was shared, it's because they commented on it, which to me is almost like a little endorsement, which is just makes it so much better. To see your post with their friends comment underneath just makes it all the more sweeter for your content to go viral on LinkedIn. And then LinkedIn's just way nicer. People are kind on LinkedIn. People are mean on Twitter. And I think it's more public on LinkedIn because you have to put your name, you have to put your photo, and your boss and your future employer is going to see you there. You know, your coworkers are certainly going to see you there. So people are on better behavior. I've had people tell me that that's a downside, that people aren't being authentic. And to some degree, I'm like, good. If being authentic means being a jerk, then I don't want you to be authentic. Genuinely. I'd rather you actually, if you want to like really call me out on something, do it in a DM. Let's have a conversation about it. You don't have to cuss me out in front of like everybody. Like, come on, like, why do people do this? Now, honestly, if you really want to get the real side, you can go to Twitter or Reddit and kind of go searching around for people, how they really feel. You know, if you're really concerned with like, if they're putting on a mask on LinkedIn, you want to see what they're really feeling. I'm glad there's platforms for people to express their full selves. I just don't want it to happen on LinkedIn, and I'm okay with that. I've learned so much from critics and having really good conversations when we both passionately disagree. I've become a better marketer. I've had to change my stances, and I've certainly have said things that have changed other people's stances. I'm like, isn't that the way it's supposed to work? We come together civilly and like actually care. So that's what I love about LinkedIn. People care. People are friendly. I make friends there all the time. That's what it's really all about, is making friends more than just getting an audience and building a distribution channel.
So why do you, Dan Sanchez, connect with people on LinkedIn? I'm sure you have different categories, but what are the reasons you go and connect with people on LinkedIn?
The main reason is for relationships and friendships, because relationships is what powers everything. It's not only like, certainly it's what powers profitability. And I learned this from James. I was not that kind of marketer before. I was very much performance driven, ads, optimizing landing pages, email sequences, and I was really good at it. James, on the other hand, has taught me a whole different side to marketing. And honestly, it's way more meaningful. It's way more fun. He's very relational in his approach and the way he meets people, the way he greets people, the way he keeps up with people. If you go and stay in his guest room in his house, it will be surrounded with your photos. Like when you check in, just to kind of give you like a small glimpse into kind of the person James Carberry is. So his approach to LinkedIn and social media and podcasting is that way too. Wrote the book called Content-Based Networking, which is about how to build relationships through podcasting. And he approaches it that way with LinkedIn too. And I was just like, dude, sign me up. So I went after it. And honestly, like, it makes work more fun, because these aren't just people I'm selling to. They're people I'm building relationships with. And I don't sell them if I know they don't need it. I'm not going to pressure them into buying something, just like you wouldn't with a friend. But if a friend is in need of the thing you have, then you'd be like, hey, well, we can help, or I'd gladly sit down and teach you how to do it yourself. That's how a real friend does business. And it's way more fun when you're just like doing life and making profit and doing it with all your friends at the same time. Some of them work with you. Some of them your customers. Some of them could be future customers. And some of them are people will never be customers, but who cares? They're cool and you like them and we talk about marketing, right? Or whatever it is we're into. Sometimes it's about your personal things. So that's the thing I love most about it. It just happens to power so much more. It powers business outcomes. It powers meaning and significance and fulfillment in my own life, knowing that I have more friends now because of this thing called LinkedIn. One thing you can do so that more people actually push accept and then you become friends later is optimize your profile. Too many people optimize their profile for their future employer or to sell stuff. Don't do that. Be someone you would want to connect with, right? Now in Sweetfish, we all have to have our byline says we produce podcasts for B2B brands, because it's probably the only ask Sweetfish makes of employees, even though they put a lot of effort into employees' personal brands. That's the only ask they have. So I do that. And it makes sense because as we all collectively do it, it's Sweetfish. Great advertising for Sweetfish. Other than that, I have that I'm a host of a podcast. I don't even include that I'm a director of audience growth. I'm like, I'm a host of this podcast. It's a little bit more interesting to connect with somebody who's more of a media entity-ish than just someone who's a marketer. And then if you read my about section, it's specifically crafted to like show you how I can bring you value. The person reading this, not a future employer, not my boss. I optimize for people to want to connect with me. I give them things that I'm passionate about that aren't in marketing. But of course, I'm telling you, like, I freaking love marketing. It says it straight up. I'm like, hey, my name's Dan Sanchez. My friends call me Danchez. So let's be friends. Call me Danchez and smash that connect button. Come on, pound fist. Right?
Walk me through the tactical steps of what you said, because you said in order to build relationships with people who are at a higher ilk, right? People who are bigger influencers. It's a process. What's your process?
This is the process. And I actually learned this from Justin Welsh to some degree and then started modifying it a bit. But I picked 3 influencers that had more following than me. And Justin Welsh was one. Chris Walker was another one. And Austin Belsack was the third. If you don't know Justin, he's all into growing a business from building a following on LinkedIn. Chris Walker is into B2B marketing, demand gen. Austin Belsack is the biggest of the 3, and he's into landing a dream job at one of the like top companies, and he has a whole system for how to do that. So Chris Walker was probably the closest, like the people engaging with him were the closest to this kinds of customers I'd love to have. But I targeted all 3 essentially to grow my own influence and to build relationships with them, because again, it's all about relationships. So I would make sure to comment on their posts first thing. Like I wanted to be the first comment if possible. So I memorized like when they were posting, and I would often show up at like within minutes of when they had posted. And then I would quickly read their post or watch their video and think about what's the best possible comment I can leave. It's going to be, that's so good. It's practically a content piece in itself. And oftentimes I would copy and paste it and repost it as content because it's that good. Right. And it's going to be like scroll stopping good. Like if I put this in the feed, people would stop to read. Because if you can get people to like it and comment it, these guys have huge followings. If you could be the top comment on their post going viral, you're going to win more friends and influence people, because a lot of people are going to be commenting on your comment. It's a great way to build an audience at first, and it's game for anybody. Anybody can do it. And you can get better at writing responses or sharing your version of what they said, or asking really good questions to follow up with their question.